Hello YouTubes! Welcome back to James Recommends. This week we're just going fully DIY with the microphone that comes with the iPhone. Hopefully this one will work and sound a little bit better. If not, we'll try other things next week. Anyway, this week I wanted to talk about a game called Her Story. Because as many of you guys probably have seen the extra credits episode that we did back on Cloud Chamber, and me talking about how I was interested in full motion video, because this was an element of game design that we abandoned in the 90s, and okay, probably early 2000s, there were still some coming out then. They were pretty terrible. But what was really interesting is when we originally used them, this was only for big budget games, right? The idea of having video production in a video game was something that was really expensive. And what fascinated me is video cost has come down so much that in the last few years, a lot of independent developers have come to realize that actually they can cut a great deal of costs by using actual live actors in their video games. So let's get back to Her Story. Her Story only has a single actor, right? Brilliant on the cost-cutting front. And this particular actress is the entire game. All the game is seeing clips of this actress and trying to put together the story that's going on. But I want to talk about it on James Recommends because the central mechanic's really interesting. Good, bad, you can decide, but interesting definitely, a new thought. So the creators of this have transcribed all of the script for this. Clearly, I mean, they already had it, right? They had to write it at some point anyway. And with each associated clip, you can search through it by the words that they say with a simple search bar, like your Google search bar, right? And the entire game is just you trying to find and piece together all the story by searching the clips by keyword, right? So if I wanted to, it's a mystery, right? So I might type murder or whatever, right? And a group of clips would come up where the actress says the word murder. This in and of itself is an interesting way of making the story very non-linear, right? Making the story in some ways interactive without a lot of interactivity, because the player is interacting by trying to figure out how they piece this puzzle together. But it isn't enough by itself, and this is where I thought the really interesting element of design came in, right? It's one of these fixes. Okay, so now you've written out all your words for all your video clips, you've got this interesting mystery that the player's going to see in pieces, and wait, what do you do if they just type the word the, right? Because like 90% of the clips are going to include the word the. Well, in this game they chose to limit the number of search results you get to see to a small number. It varies, but I think it's like 5, 7, something like that. Anyway, it's a small number and it's in chronological order. So typing the will get you the very first 7 clips, right? But after that, it's not going to show anything. And so as you dig, you have to dig deeper and deeper and start putting the pieces together in your head and what you think's going to come up in order to sort of suss out and dig out some of the later clips. So this has 2 interesting elements, right? The interactivity of forcing the player to think about the story by making them get pieces of the story through a search bar, a Google-esque search bar. And then on top of that, limiting what that search bar actually allows them to receive as results in order to make certain sections of the storyline more difficult to access and force the player to think more about what they are specifically rather than try and game the system in order to access them. This has another interesting element in the design front. This meant as designers, they sort of had to think very carefully about the script as they were building it, right? Because writing an interesting mystery script is difficult enough in itself, but now you have to think, oh, have I used the word murder 5 times before this? If so, I have to know that murder is not going to bring this section up. So what's another word that the player can sort of get in their mind that's going to dig this out of the vault? My only contention, well, as I said, this may not be, if you're looking for a high interactivity game, I mean, if you're looking for a game that's more reflex based, this certainly isn't it. This is just an interesting moment in design for you to check out. But they have this section, which I'll just warn you about. It's a very tiny spoiler, but I'll warn you about beforehand. They have a section where the main actress is taking a polygraph test. And all she ever answers is yes or no. And those are actually unsearchable, because before that section, there are 5 yeses. Before that section, there are 5 nos. But they give you a sort of chart that you can look up as far as what sections you've gotten to see so far. And you'll always have that block missing until you unlock the cheats after you beat the game. And this was a very interesting design choice for me. I don't necessarily agree with it, because it feels to the player like they're missing part of the story and it's their own fault. And in a mystery, that becomes very frustrating when you simply can't access part of the mystery, and you're told that the reason that you can't access it is because you haven't thought about it enough. And then you find out that no, actually, the designer was just arbitrarily throwing that in there, I guess, as a red herring, right? But in an interactive environment, it simply didn't work for me. We may all have different opinions on that, but with that caveat, this week, if you're interested in a novel way to use full motion video, this week, James recommends Her Story. See you all next week.